Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back here on the industry stage at Formnext 2022, day 2, ladies and gentlemen. We are already in our afternoon program, and we just enjoyed a fantastic presentation by Terry Wallace about the current status of our industry. He mentioned one very important thing. He was talking about success stories. He was talking about how we develop further business in our industry, and one crucial factor for the whole thing is standardization. Because if we want to get additive manufactured parts in airplanes, if we want to have them in our industry in a serial production, we need standards in order to ensure that this is working all over. And as Formnext is supporting it, on Monday, leaders from ASTM International, ISO, America Makes, and the U.S. Commercial Service came together with industry experts to discuss how standards can accelerate the adoption of AM and cut cost. And we want to, of course, hear what kind of results we can expect from such a summit. And there's a person that will share who will share the insights of the summit. And therefore, I welcome Dr. Lauren Edney from ASTM International here on stage. Lauren, it's so good to have you. Please enjoy the presentation. Big applause, Lauren, ladies and gentlemen.
So good afternoon, and thank you very much for that warm welcome. So thank you all for coming today to hear a little bit of a wrap-up of Monday's AM Innovation and Standards Award Summit. So today I'll share a little bit of insight into the sessions that we held and the outcomes and the key takeaways, and also a little bit on the ASTM International's journey and how we've kind of got to the point in which we have. So, let me begin with a very quick overview of ASTM International. So ASTM have been going for the past 126 years, and we've really driven standardization across a number of industries and a number of technologies to drive that industrialization of technology. But in the past 15 years or so, we've really went through a transformation. So additive, obviously, we're all here, has seen a really big up and coming. So we've got the ASTM AM Center of Excellence. We are now, as Terry mentioned, a team of 40 individuals, and we are split across 4 continents, and we have to battle 11 different time zones to do our work. But ultimately, we work across 5 different pillars. We look at research, training, workforce development. We've got a number of consortiums, and we also carry out some advisory services with a number of kind of project sponsors, as you can see down here on the bottom. So, our topic on Monday was all about cost effective, but and unfortunately, I can't show you all of the projects we were involved in, but we can take a look at our government projects. So here we have a whole range of projects, and increasing with Navy, U.S. Army, America Makes, National Institute of Standardized Technology. And we range a whole load of projects covering some really key topics. Training, qualification, certification, all the way through to AM economics. So we've been doing this for quite a long time, but what's really the backbone of all of it is standardization. So as this is now our 4th year running, the AM Innovation and Standards Summit. So first up, thank you to all our partners we run this event with, and thank you to Mesago Formnext for putting on this event. Also to the U.S. Commercial Services, ISO, America Makes, and then also the ASTM International team. But as the years have gone on, our event has progressed and changed, and we've driven a number of themes through our event. My boss likes to call ASTM the town hall. He says where industry comes, they can have a platform to share their troubles, their worries, what they need fixed within additive manufacturing. So we started in our first year with the industrialization of AM, and we have now worked through to driving cost-effective AM through innovation and standardization. But one of the first things that was said on Monday's event, what is innovation? And there's a really key point, I think, to this topic. Innovation is adaptation. We are all pushing forward novel new technologies. But without adaptation, we can't innovate. Without adapting, we can't move forward. So, cost efficiency. And one of the best things about standards, we've got loads of them, so we can give you some right initial quick wins straight off the bat. Slade Gardner, best thing about standards, you can choose from so many. And typically, the best thing about standards is also that you can reinvent the wheel. So we need to get that quick win and stop doing that. So, first question, is your standard available? In a lot of cases, yes. You might not know about it, but your standard will be in progress somewhere. What are other industries doing? So Formnext gives you a key platform to understand this in a wider platform. And then finally, can we take any learnings from other industries? So what have those before us done? There's some really key similarities, castings, composites, forgings, that have really driven to get us to where we are today. So I want to start off by giving you a bit of an overview of the talks that were held without actually re-giving these talks. So we had 5 keynote speakers on Monday, came from a range of different industries, and all amazing. But one in particular really drove home actually why we are here. So Sebastian from 3D Systems gave a talk on metal AM applications, and he discussed a case study of a young 10-year-old boy. And in December, on the 28th, he was in an accident on his grandparents' farm, a terrible, horrible accident. A chainsaw snapped and embedded within his skull. 3 weeks later, that child was back at school through the benefits of AM. So that really kind of tells us why we're doing and how important what we are doing is. So these talks were then followed by a number of breakout sessions, and we covered a whole load of industries. We looked at software, we looked at aviation, space, medical, and energy and oil and gas, and then also, of course, standardization. I really thought when we were asked to give this presentation that I'd kind of walk you through all of these different sessions, these breakouts, and give you a bit of an overview. But unfortunately, if I was doing that, I'd be standing up here repeating myself quite a lot, and you'd probably all turn around and walk out. But I think that's actually a really critical message to be giving. There is, 7 different industries up there, and you've all got a common problem that needs to be solved. So how do we try and get that down? So for the past 4 years, we have followed a standardized approach. We have looked at the state of the art. What's new, what's now, what's most relevant, what are we doing of tomorrow? Where are those opportunities? And what challenges do we need to break down to get there? And what enablers do we also need to consider? So, first up, cost-effective AM. It's all about driving cost efficiency. We can now do qualification, we can certify components, and now the question that in our town hall we have been asked is, how do we make that cheaper? How do we make that more cost-effective? But is cost always just cost? Is it always just the pound sign that comes before it? Or actually, is there added value that we can be gaining elsewhere? Medical industry is a key one. How quickly can we get a patient back to school? Or, if you're in the front line, how quickly can I get you back to where you need to be, safely, without any issues? But how do we quantify that? What are the techno-economic models that are in place? So ASTM have been working on a techno-economic project with American mates to develop these models that hopefully, in the very near future, will be going into a standard that everybody can use. But we still need cost effectivity. And that takes us on to our supply chain. Digital inventory, again, cost reductions, the need for digital twins to provide a global access. I could be sitting in America with a digital twin of a component, and I could send it over to a colleague at the other side of the world to have it printed where it is needed. I don't have to be scurrying around to find someone that can then redraw my part, rescan my part. We can do that all in one swift movement now. And again, standards are always a solution. And this is what we were trying to tell people on Monday, that chances are something is out there. So ISO ASTM standard 52951 is currently under committee review. And this is looking at the development of a digital twin for AM parts. How do we tie digital twins, the data we need for the digital twin, and how do we then tie that back in to the AM part? Data. Data is a big one, and a lot of people today and over the next couple of days will be talking about data. We collect tremendous amounts of data with our processes and with our machines. We've seen the scale. We've seen Terry's message about the size of new powder bed fusion, laser metal deposition machines. They are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that means more and more and more data. So that's already a quick win in itself. We collect that data, but it leads to a lot of uncertainty. Why are we collecting that data? What am I doing with that data? And actually, what do I need to track? What do I need to keep a hold of? And how can I reduce back down the data that I'm taking in? And then also, what's the future capability of that data? How can I use that tomorrow? How can I build my models around this data to deliver my digital twins? Data is a big, big part of what we do at ASTM. We've got the Global Consortium for Materials, Data and Standardization, or some of you may know it, CMDS. We're using requirements and best practices through our standards to deliver trusted material and data that we can then use to generate a high pedigree data collection that can be used as a data management system across a consortium. So everyone there has got access to that data to then drive also standards development, drive trust within your industry, and also within your high-up stakeholders. And another big one, especially as we're in Europe, sustainability. In the next couple of years, you've got some really, really strict regulations coming in on what you can put back out into the environment. So we need to start looking at things like material efficiency, our design optimization. How can we make something lighter? How can we remove material that's not quite needed? And then also, at the same time as doing that, we don't have to machine that material back out. We're just laying down what we need in the first place, so we can reduce our material waste. And again, at Monday's event, someone stood at the front and said medical grade PEEK costs $5,500 per kilogram. And your conventional manufacturers are wasting 90% of that kilogram for every part that they make. That's a lot of money. And it's a lot of reduced material when you can't then do anything else with it. And then finally, sustainability can also drive supply chain optimization. Make the part where we need to make the part, rather than having to deliver it halfway across the world. Making your forgings in Japan when actually they're needed in Europe or they're needed in America. The supply chain, the delivery cost you can save are astronomical. The one I'll harp on about a little bit. Standards. Being the Standards and Innovation Summit, we did think this one would come up slightly, but pretty much across the board, everyone said there was a need for a common language within standardization, and a need for more standards. Please, no one tell Slade Gardner. But you can see in the past 5 years, the numbers of standards available have seriously increased. I mean, the past few decades, we have released 75 AM standards in partnership with ISO. And you can see from this graph here, our trajectory is getting quicker and quicker and quicker. So more will be coming. We also talked about standards within testing and evaluation. Could we use standards to provide a safe zone for components so you can then reduce the testing and the post-processing that you need to do to, again, bring down your cost? I can provide you a safe zone for your components above it, scrap it. If it's below it, scrap it. But in that middle zone, you're safe. You then don't have to do your X-ray CT. You don't have to do all your tensile testing. And again, with these standards, you build trust. Build trust in your material, your components, your systems, and also in some cases in your testing methods. You'll see down in this hall. And then finally, personal qualifications. How can we get everyone in a place where They can walk in and be like, I know I'm going to get consistent quality. Personal qualification. You can get trained operator certificates. You can get facility requirement certificates. So everyone can be singing from the very same hymn sheet. And as everyone says, a rising tide will lift all boats. Our standards are driven by consensus. So unfortunately, if I decide I want this wild and wacky idea, someone is probably going to tell me no. But consensus brings everyone together, and it ensures that our industry is moving forward together, collaboratively. So consensus through standards will lead off to our best practices within the industry. And that's what we really need to continue this drive with AM. And at that, thank you very much for your attention. And another self-plug. I'd like to just point out ICAM in October. It is in Vegas. We can thank Mosen at the back for that one. And there we go. If anyone's got any questions, more than happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Big applause, please. Dr. Lauren Empney. Any questions from the audience? So far not. I mean, you explained it fantastically, so there was no too much room for questions.
Perfect.
But honestly, I mean, I remember the recent years, to be honest, as an outsider, you came into and you talk to some companies and they tell you, yeah, there's still a standard missing.
Yes.
How do companies approach you? Is that something where you gather companies and say, we need a new standard on this topic? Or is it like by market research? Or are companies coming to you and asking, is there already a standard in place?
Yeah, so it's platforms like this. I was approached this morning from a company in oil and gas, and it was have you got these standards? We need these standards. Okay, so if we don't have that standard, we can then put the roadway in place to get you that standard if it's what's needed within your industry. But my first point is always come chat. Don't struggle through standards. I appreciate also, I've said there is a lot of them, and it can be an absolute minefield. Yeah. So come have the conversations. We can guide you through that path, and we can support you on that journey as well.
Let us take a practical example. So let's say I want to deliver 3D printing products or a process, whatever, to automotive industry or aerospace or military. That are the ones we're talking about all the time right now. So, and I want to know what their standards are and how they match to my product. That would be something as well where I talk to you and get support.
Completely, yeah. Okay. So we've been looking at some programs at the moment where we're taking all of those requirements from the various industries. And actually, in a lot of these standards, there's a lot of things that are equal across all industries. You know, your environment, your facility, your operator training, for example. They all need to be at a similar level. So there's no need for us all to have a different certification qualification spec. We can drive 80% of that is a common shared base, and then we can just add a bolt on for automotive, for defense, medical, whoever.
Allow me one last question, because I'm really interested. So if we, generally speaking, there are some ISO norms or standards where you say you need to have them in order to be recognized as trustworthy. Let's put it that way. So is there already, let's say, one standard that you can point out in additive where you say this is the one you have to have in order to be a good, trustworthy additive manufacturing company?
Do you know what? I would go back to basics and say terminology standards. And 52900 is key, and also our facility requirements, I would say, is kind of your starting point. There is a roadmap to standards within a standard in 52920, I believe it is. Do not quote me on that one. But yeah, I would say that's the real starting point, and then grow from there.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you so much. Good luck for the rest of the fair. It was a pleasure to have you on stage.
Thank you very much.
And hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Big applause, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Lauren Empney. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we will provide you with another few highlights. I want to just remind you of something. You know that tomorrow we will hand over the Formnext Awards, and you are still able to vote on our platform in order to give an additional juror's voice to the awards. So please do that, don't forget that. Give your vote, because you can directly influence the outcome of this election, and it's super important for our startup. Thank you so much for that. See you in a few minutes.